Dad, please don't call 911. I didn't do anything. Those were the last words I said to my father before two officers pulled my arms behind my back and led me out of my own home in handcuffs. He believed my sister's lies over 18 years of knowing me. He let the police take me away without asking a single question. For 18 months in prison, not one family member came to see me, not one phone call, not one letter. But the day I was finally released was the day my family lost absolutely everything. What happened between my arrest and that final day would destroy the version of my family they had built on a lie, and it all started with the one question no one bothered to ask: what if she didn't do it? My name is Emily. I'm 29 years old, and until that night, I believed my family, whatever their flaws, would always stand behind me. I was wrong. My younger sister Kayla and I had never been close, not in the way sisters are supposed to be. She was always the golden child, charming in front of our parents, but sharp-edged and manipulative behind closed doors. I learned to keep my distance years ago, choosing peace over confrontation. That night, I had come home to find our father's study in chaos, papers scattered, a small safe pried open, important documents and a significant amount of cash missing. Before I could even process what I was looking at, Kayla appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with practiced shock, pointing directly at me. "She did this," she said to our father, who had rushed in behind her. "I saw her going through your things earlier." I didn't want to believe it, but I saw her. I stood there stunned, unable to form a coherent defense fast enough. "Dad, please don't call 911. I didn't do anything," I pleaded, my voice cracking with disbelief. But he was already dialing, his face unreadable, choosing in that single moment to trust Kayla's frightened performance over 18 years of knowing exactly who I was. Within 20 minutes, I was in handcuffs, watching my own home shrink behind me through the back window of a police car. The evidence against me was circumstantial at best, but Kayla's testimony was detailed, emotional, convincing. She claimed she had seen me near the study earlier that evening, acting suspicious, and that I had once mentioned needing money for personal debts I never actually had. My public defender, overworked and underprepared, failed to challenge the timeline properly or investigate other possibilities. My own father, when called to testify, simply repeated what Kayla had told him, unable to look me in the eyes as he did. I remember sitting in that courtroom, watching my family choose comfort in a simple explanation over the harder, messier truth. It was easier to believe the daughter who cried convincingly than to question the one who stood there in stunned silence, unable to defend herself properly. The jury convicted me of theft and unlawful entry into my own father's safe, a charge that still feels absurd to say out loud even now. I was sentenced to 18 months in prison. As they led me out of the courtroom, I searched the room for any sign of doubt on my family's faces. My mother wept quietly into a tissue. My father stared at the floor. Kayla sat perfectly still, her expression unreadable, save for the faintest flicker of something dangerously close to relief. Prison was not just a punishment for a crime I didn't commit. It was a slow, grinding lesson in exactly how alone a person can become when the people who are supposed to love you choose silence instead of standing beside you. Every week, I waited for a letter, a phone call, even a single visit. None came. Not from my mother. Not from my father. Not from Kayla, who had every reason to stay far away from me. I spent those months building something inside myself I didn't know I had: quiet resolve. I read everything I could about wrongful convictions. I wrote to a legal aid organization specializing in exactly these kinds of cases, explaining every detail of that night, every inconsistency I could recall. A caseworker named Diane took interest in my file after nearly a year, noticing gaps in the original investigation that had never been properly addressed. She began quietly digging into financial records, phone data, and security footage from a neighbor's camera that had never been requested during my original trial. What she found didn't just create doubt. It began revealing something far larger than a single theft, something involving debts, deception, and a plan that had nothing to do with me at all, but everything to do with protecting someone else's secret. Diane discovered that Kayla had been secretly struggling with significant gambling debts for over a year, debts she had hidden from our parents entirely. The night of the theft, she had taken the money herself, planning to use it to pay off a debt collector who had been threatening her. The neighbor's security footage, something never pulled during my original case, showed Kayla's car parked outside our father's house nearly 45 minutes before I had even arrived home that night, a detail that directly contradicted her sworn testimony. Diane also uncovered a text message exchange, recovered through updated forensic technology, between Kayla and a friend, sent just hours before the incident, mentioning she needed to fix this before Dad finds out, a message that made no sense if I had truly been the one responsible. With this new evidence, Diane filed an emergency appeal on my behalf, presenting everything to a judge months later. The contradictions were undeniable. The timeline Kayla had sworn to under oath simply couldn't hold up against verified footage and digital evidence. After 18 months of silence, isolation, and quiet determination, my conviction was formally overturned. I remember sitting in that small courtroom, feeling something between relief and disbelief, as the judge read the ruling that finally acknowledged what I had known from the very beginning: I never took anything. The day I walked out of prison, sunlight hit my face in a way I had almost forgotten was possible. Diane stood beside me, the only person who had truly fought for me during those 18 long months. I didn't call my family. I didn't need to. Word had already reached them through the same legal channels that had overturned my case. My phone, silent for a year and a half, suddenly began ringing repeatedly, voicemail after voicemail from numbers I no longer wished to answer. I later learned that the same day my conviction was overturned, Kayla's financial situation, along with her fabricated story, unraveled completely. The debt collectors she had been avoiding filed a civil case against her once her deception became public record. My father, forced to confront the reality of what he had ignored for nearly 2 years, discovered Kayla had also been secretly borrowing money using his name and credit history without his knowledge, damaging his financial standing far beyond what any of us initially realized. The very day I was finally released was the same day my family's carefully maintained image completely collapsed under the weight of truths they had refused to see for far too long. Weeks later, my father reached out, asking to meet in person. I agreed, though not out of forgiveness, but out of a need for closure. He looked older somehow, worn down by guilt and the slow realization of what his silence had cost me. I should have asked more questions, he said quietly. I should have believed in who you truly were, instead of panicking and reacting. You didn't just fail to ask questions, I said. You chose the easier story over the harder truth, because it was simpler to believe your other daughter was innocent. He nodded, unable to argue against something so painfully accurate. I lost everything trying to protect the wrong version of this family, he admitted. My savings, my credit, and worse, I nearly lost you completely. I told him healing wasn't something that would happen overnight. That trust, once broken this deeply, takes far longer to rebuild than it ever takes to destroy. Kayla eventually faced legal consequences for the fraudulent loans taken in our father's name, along with formal charges connected to the false statements she gave during my original trial. Her carefully built image, the golden child who could do no wrong, crumbled entirely once the truth became impossible to ignore. She reached out once, asking for understanding, claiming she panicked, that she never intended for things to go this far. I told her that intentions mean very little when someone else pays the price for 18 months of your silence. I didn't seek personal revenge against her. The truth itself had already done more damage to her carefully constructed reputation than anything I could have orchestrated myself. Looking back, that single night, standing in my father's ransacked study, changed the entire direction of my life, not just through the injustice I endured, but through what it revealed about the fragile trust holding my family together. I rebuilt my life slowly after my release, supported by people like Diane, who believed in facts over convenient assumptions. My relationship with my father remains a work in progress, built now on cautious honesty rather than blind loyalty. If there's one thing those 18 months taught me, it's this: the truth doesn't disappear just because it's inconvenient. It waits, quietly, patiently, until the moment someone is finally brave enough, or forced enough, to uncover it. And sometimes, the people who abandon you in your darkest moment are the very ones left standing in the wreckage, once the truth they refused to face finally comes home to settle its debts.